Hey everyone, welcome back to Game Over, Order Up, the show where we take a look at a video game while also cooking some food from that game. Today we're making cookies while looking at Cookie Clicker, which is probably the most famous of the clicker idle game genre. Originally released in August of 2013 and re-released for Steam this year, Cookie Clicker is a game about making the number of cookies you have go up. You start off clicking to gain cookies before you can spend them on helpful assistants to make the cookies for you. Before long, you don't even need to do any cookie making yourself and can bask in the number and cookie crunching glory. Before we get to that though, how about we make some cookies ourselves? While there are many wonderful options for cookies in Cookie Clicker, we're going to go for the good old-fashioned gooey chocolate chip. We're going to start by browning 230 grams of unsalted butter. The reason we brown the butter is to give it a more intense, slightly nutty flavour to what regular butter would give. To do this, we need to melt the butter over a medium heat, stirring constantly. We want to do this until the milk solids in the butter start to separate from the liquid and begin to brown. As it starts to brown, pay close attention to the solids, as at this point it is very easy to overdo it and end up burning the butter. As an anxious person, I wasn't about to take any risks, so while I think I could have browned the butter a little longer, I decided to take it off the heat with a mostly browning. Pour this into a jug, let sit to cool down to room temperature, and then put in the fridge for up to an hour or until it's re-solidified. Once our butter is re-solidified, it's time to give our arms a workout. Start by mixing it up to make it as messy as possible, making sure to get it all around the top of your mixing jug so that you can't incorporate it effectively, then add in half a cup of white sugar and 1.5 cups of brown sugar. Whisk everything together with a fork, making sure to keep your actual whisk close by in case you decide using an actual whisking instrument would be a better shout. When your fork doesn't quite do the trick, go to your drawer and get a wooden spatula to beat everything together with. With our butter and sugars mixed together, we're grabbing, cracking and placing 2 eggs into the mixture before continuing to beat it together some more. Should I use the whisk for this job? Nah, let's just flip it round and get back to beating. With that mixed, let's move on to our dry ingredients. We're placing 326 grams of flour into a new mixing jug, as well as between a half and 1 tablespoon of salt because salt in cookies is delicious, and half a teaspoon of bicarbonate soda. With everything in the jug, we can finally use our whisk to whisk it all together. I'm sorry for leaving you out for so long, my whiskey friend. I won't let it happen again. Now we're getting back our butter mix from before and adding in half of our dry stuff, mixing it all together until it's combined before adding the other half. Adding everything at once would cause a lot of gluten buildup, which would be bad, I think. I'm not actually sure why though, so let's quickly Bing it to find out. Yes, I use Bing. Gotta get them Microsoft points because I'm addicted to gamifying my entire life. Okay, do some searches and there. Too much gluten would make them overly dry and stiff. Thanks, Yuppie Chef. If you have a stand mixer, that would make this mixing job a lot easier, but if you have scrawny arms like me, then perhaps the self-mixing would be good for you, help you build up some definition. Towards the end of the mixing process, we're going to grab a pack of chocolate chip cookies, or other fillings if you prefer, and add them to our mix, continuing to churn away until they're spread out among the cookie dough. With the dough all mixed, we're putting it into a glass container and then putting it into the fridge for 24 hours. This allows the flour to hydrate, causing the cookie dough to be firmer and easier to bake with. You could leave it in the fridge for a minimum of 2 hours at this point, or a maximum of 3 days, but 24 hours is the sweet spot for me, as well as being the maximum amount of time I can patiently wait for it to be ready. While we wait for tomorrow, let's take a look at the game Cookie Clicker. So many games these days work around the mentality of the Skinner box theory. Skinner box games work by giving you regular, easy dopamine hits through the achievement of goals, such as a number going up, and then start increasing the time it takes to achieve further goals, holding back on the dopamine hits to get you to play more and more in order to achieve them. You'll see this a lot in games that want you to play for a long time. Online RPGs where you level up a character and get better weapons come to mind, as well as casual games like Farmville. They will start by rewarding you regularly before increasing the time for these rewards later on when you're addicted to the dopamine hit that the game provides. You still know how to get that hit, but you have to work harder and longer to get it. Cookie Clicker is this game design stripped back to its very core. It's a game where the only real objective is to see a number of the cookies go up. something that, after a few minutes with the game, you have very little direct involvement with. Instead, you choose what to invest your earnings or cookies in order to see that number go up higher, unlocking further ways to increase your number the more you play. On the surface, it sounds fairly pointless and boring, and it is pointless. But after having it run for over 100 hours at this point, the boredom of seeing that number go up hasn't arrived. Instead, I find it to be quite a relaxing and gratifying game to have running in the background whenever I'm at my computer. A game that I only engage with occasionally to make some decisions on how I want to run my cookie empire before allowing it to continue to run its course. Cookie Clicker isn't the only game that is like this, and they all tend to follow similar patterns, but for my money, which isn't much, it's the most engaging. Part of that is the cookie aesthetic, which sees you hiring grandmothers to bake them for you, and then starting cookie farms before eventually using a time machine to get the cookies from the past before they've been eaten. There's a great sense of humour to it all that adds to the fun. There's also a surprising level of depth to some of the stages. A particular favourite is the cookie stock market, which lets you spend cookies on stocks that then go up and down in price, cashing in when the stocks are high and being able to plan ahead to make the most sugary profit. These micro experiences add to the fun factor by giving you more inputs than just hiring more goons to make the number increase. And what happens when the number is as high as you care to make it? You can ascend, giving yourself a permanent stat increase for your next run, where you start all over again. The Steam release of Cookie Clicker adds an incredibly relaxing soundtrack by Minecraft composer C418, as well as Steam achievements you can get for experimenting around with the game. Ultimately, the enjoyment you get out of Cookie Clicker is going to depend on what engagement you get from quick dopamine hits. Some people don't respond to it at all, but others, who are total suckers to mental manipulation in video game form, mentioning no names, will find themselves enthralled with the whole experience. Cookie Clicker was great when it released in 2013, and is just as good now. 24 hours have passed, and it is now the evening of the following day, as you can tell by my change of clothes following a day at work. I've chosen to wear a jumper that is slightly too small for me because I have no professionalism, so apologies for any belly shots that creep their way in here. We're preheating our oven up to 200 degrees Celsius before covering a baking tray with baking paper, and then forming our dough into similar sized cookie shapes. I've managed to make 12 here, before popping them into bake for 12 to 15 minutes, taking them out once they are golden brown before letting them cool. And now for the taste test. I am super happy with how these came out. They're incredibly gooey on the inside, they're very sweet with a kick of saltiness to them. While they aren't round like in the game, I'm happy that they have expanded to a decent size where one is filling enough on its own, though, like the game that inspired them, they're addictive, and I could quite happily eat as many as I could bake each second. If I was going to change one thing, I would probably use slightly less salt next time, but that is just a personal preference. Regardless though, I'm marking these as Cookie Champions, and I highly recommend giving them a go yourself. Thanks for watching, see you next time. Okay, maybe I'll have one more.